So, I want you to try and imagine something with me for a second.
Okay, let's do it.
You are standing in the middle of a subway station, right? It's rush hour.
Oh, the worst time to be there.
Exactly. Bodies are just kind of brushing past your shoulders. The air has that, that smell of ozone and stale coffee.
Very vivid, yeah. I know the exact smell.
And there are voices overlapping everywhere, like muffled announcements, maybe a couple arguing near the turnstiles, a frantic beat just leaking out of someone's earbuds.
Double sensory chaos.
Right. And then your phone buzzes in your hand. It's a notification. Then another one. Then, like, 3 more.
Just relentless.
It's a colleague asking for a file. It's a breaking news alert. It's a calendar reminder for some subscription you keep forgetting to cancel.
Oh, I hate those.
So you open the screen basically to escape the noise of the station, and immediately you start scrolling through a thread of hyperpolarized opinions on a topic you barely even understand.
But you feel like you have to have an opinion.
Yes. You feel completely compelled to form a stance on it right then and there. And meanwhile, somewhere deep beneath your ribs, there is this quiet, physical sensation stirring.
Like a tightening.
Yeah, a slight tightening. A whisper so faint it feels more like a memory than an actual presence.
And well, you try to tune into that tightening, right? But the sheer volume of everything else just completely buries it.
It just drowns it out.
Exactly. Because the noise isn't just echoing off the tiled walls of that subway station anymore. The noise is entirely internal now.
It's like it moved inside you.
It's taken up residence in your nervous system.
Which brings us to today. Welcome to this custom-tailored deep dive. We are really thrilled you're here with us.
It's going to be a good one.
We're exploring some truly fascinating concepts today, notes circling around Gestalt, psychology, perception, and, well, the philosophy of attention.
The really deep stuff.
Yeah. And our mission for this conversation is to explore that exact feeling on the subway platform, that unsettling sense of being entirely disconnected from your own inner voice.
And I think more importantly, we're going to dismantle this exhausting, frankly toxic modern advice that to fix this, you just need to try harder to listen.
Right, the whole just listen to your inner voice cliche.
Exactly. We need to fundamentally reframe this. We're stepping away from traditional self-help checklists today.
Thank goodness.
We're going to look at this as a problem of perception. If we put on the lens of a Gestalt philosopher, the issue isn't that you've lost your voice.
What has it been?
The issue lies in how your brain organizes reality. It's about the patterns of your attention and this relentless biological tension between what stands out in the foreground of your mind and what gets shoved into the background.
So let's stay with that moment on the subway platform for a minute. Why does that specific overwhelming feeling happen?
It's a very specific biological state.
Because I think we all know it. It's not just being busy. It's this profound feeling of mental paralysis.
Yeah, and Gestalt psychology actually has a term for it. It's called perceptual saturation.
Perceptual saturation. Okay, break that down for me.
So to understand the mechanics of this, we have to look at how perception actually works. Your brain is never just a passive camera, recording the world.
It's doing work.
A lot of work. Perception is an active, metabolically expensive process of organization. Your mind is constantly trying to shape reality by distinguishing what matters, which we call the figure or the foreground,
Right.
from what can be safely ignored, which recedes into the background, known as the ground.
Oh, so it's kind of like trying to listen to one specific instrument in a really chaotic orchestra?
That's a perfect analogy.
You have to actively push the brass section into the background so you can actually isolate the violins in the foreground.
Exactly. But perceptual saturation happens when your field of awareness is so heavily cluttered that absolutely everything is demanding to be the figure.
Oh, wow.
Your brain's sorting mechanism just breaks down. Nothing is allowed to fade into the background. The news alert, the argument by the turnstiles, the unpaid bill.
They all feel equally important.
They carry the exact same psychological weight.
Everything feels critically urgent. Every email, every app notification, every stray thought.
Because we are living in an era of engineered hyperfiguration.
Hyperfiguration. That sounds intense.
It is. The digital and social architecture around us literally screams, "Look at me, I am the most important thing in your world right now."
It's exhausting.
Your perceptual field becomes a war zone of competing signals. And the biological mechanism of perception requires contrast to function.
It needs empty space.
Yes, it requires empty space and silence. Not as a void, but as a contrasting backdrop so that something meaningful can actually stand out.
So when you consume too many stimuli, your brain just can't create that contrast.
Right. The more you take in, the less you actually perceive.
I think we need to push back on something right here because there's a huge misconception kind of baked into this whole topic.
Absolutely.
We heavily romanticize the concept of the inner voice. We treat it like it's this wise, detached audiobook narrator living in our frontal lobe.
Right, Morgan Freeman just narrating your life choices.
Exactly. Like it's this calm persona equipped with a spiritual GPS telling us, turn left at the next career opportunity.
Which is just not how it works.
No. Looking at the concepts we're diving into, the reality is entirely pre-verbal. It's gestural.
It's a bodily experience.
Yeah. It's described as a sudden stillness when you walk past a bookstore, or this inexplicable grief when you see sunlight hit an empty chair.
Beautiful, but subtle.
But if we're being grounded about this, usually it just feels like my body is reacting to stress. Like how is a tightening in my chest when someone asks me for a favor considered a voice?
Because we've completely misunderstood what a voice is in this context. It is not linguistic.
It doesn't use words.
No, and expecting it to speak to you in full English sentences is exactly why people feel so disconnected from it.
That makes a lot of sense.
The inner voice is actually the emergent shape of your attention before it crystallizes into conscious thought.
Oh, I like that. The emergent shape of your attention.
It speaks exclusively in symptoms, in sudden heaviness, in unexplained repulsions or, magnetic poles.
Like getting a text from a specific friend asking to grab brunch, and before you even read the words, your stomach just drops.
Yes.
It's not some grand existential dread, it's just incredibly mundane friction.
Exactly. But our culture has trained us to view that physiological friction as a malfunction.
We think we're just anxious.
Right. We medicate the symptoms, we override the sudden fatigue with caffeine, and we fill the silences with music or scrolling.
We just refuse to tolerate the ambiguity of it.
Because it doesn't immediately hand us an actionable, logical next step. So we ignore the dropping stomach and type back, sounds great, see you at noon.
We've all done that. So, if the inner voice is fundamentally a physical sensation or spatial tension, how do we actually perceive it out of all the noise?
That is the big question.
Like if I'm saturated, how do I find the contrast?
We have to look at how figure-ground dynamics actually shift. Have you ever looked at the famous Rubin vase illusion?
Oh, the drawing where it looks like two faces in profile looking at each other.
Yeah, but if you shift your gaze, the negative space suddenly forms the shape of a vase.
Right. Your brain can only really see one at a time. It flips back and forth.
Exactly. When you look at that image, the physical ink on the paper does not change. Only your cognitive structuring of that sensory data changes.
The space flips.
The space flips. Your inner voice operates exactly like that vase. It is always present in your nervous system.
Always.
Always. But it remains completely invisible to you until you allow the faces, the external demands, the internal chatter, the social scripts you've inherited to recede into the background.
Let's bring this into a real-world scenario just to ground it.
Okay, let's do it.
Think about a woman who has spent, say, 10 years climbing a corporate ladder she secretly never wanted to be on.
Very common scenario.
Right. She's successful, she's highly competent, and she is utterly exhausted. And one Tuesday morning, she's just standing in her bathroom brushing her teeth, and she notices her reflection looks, well, hollow. Not angry, not actively sobbing, just absent. She doesn't have a conscious, rational thought about drafting a resignation letter.
She experiences a perceptual event.
Exactly. The figure of her profound dissatisfaction finally emerges from the background hum of her daily routine.
And in Gestalt theory, we look at the mechanics of why that figure forms.
Why does it form right then?
A figure only emerges when there is an unmet need, a biological, emotional, or existential tension in the organism that is seeking equilibrium.
So the brain highlights what it needs to resolve.
Right. But modern life is expertly engineered to continuously numb that tension before it can fully form.
Oh, wow.
We buffer our discomfort with endless digital distraction. We soothe our uncertainty by buying things online.
Those constant quick fixes.
We keep the perceptual field so densely packed with low-quality stimuli that no single genuine need can gather enough psychological intensity to become the clear figure.
If everything is shouting in bold font, the page is just black. You can't read a single word. So the root problem isn't that you've lost your inner voice. It's that you've turned your entire inner world into the foreground.
In a field without a background, nothing can stand out. This reflects a profound philosophical insight that runs from thinkers like Kierkegaard straight through to modern phenomenologists.
Which is
Authenticity isn't about embarking on an archaeological dig to find some hidden true self buried deep inside your subconscious.
right.
It's entirely about learning to attend differently. It's cultivating a perceptual stance where the slow, the subtle, and the unspoken are finally granted enough space to become the figure.
Which means the advice to listen harder is actually counterproductive.
Completely.
You don't strain to hear the voice. You create silence by deliberately letting the noise become the ground.
Yes.
But, that leads us to a massive psychological roadblock.
It does.
If we know the mechanics of how the voice emerges, why is it so agonizingly difficult for most people to just clear the background static?
Because the static isn't empty.
What do you mean?
It's made of what Gestalt psychology calls incomplete gestalts.
Okay, incomplete gestalts.
To understand why these are so disruptive, we have to grasp a core law of cognition. The human mind perceives wholes, not parts.
Right, it looks for patterns.
Exactly. Your brain doesn't assemble reality piece by piece. It grasps unifying patterns instantly. A melody isn't perceived as a mathematical sequence of isolated notes. It's felt as a single emotional arc.
Yeah, that makes sense.
A face isn't processed as eyes plus a nose plus a mouth. It's recognized instantly as a unified presence. You grasp the whole in a fraction of a second.
Which explains why when someone is lying to you or giving you a fake smile, your nervous system flags it as off before your conscious brain can articulate why.
The microexpressions don't cohere.
The whole is broken.
Exactly. Your inner life is governed by that exact same drive for coherence. Your inner voice is simply the emergent shape of your experiential field when it achieves that wholeness.
But wholeness is impossible if you are carrying around unfinished psychological business.
Right. The human brain actually hates open loops. It requires metabolic energy to keep an unresolved issue suspended in the background.
It's draining.
Very. Every unspoken boundary you've swallowed, every piece of suppressed grief, every conversation you walked away from without saying what you really meant.
Those are the incomplete gestalts.
Yes, they linger in your nervous system like unresolved chords in a piece of music.
It really makes me think of human consciousness as a physical room.
Oh, I like that imagery. Let's unpack that.
Imagine your mind right now is a cluttered living room.
Yeah.
Drawers are left half open. There are unpaid bills tucked under magazines on the table.
Unwashed dishes from 3 days ago sitting in the sink.
Right. Unread mail piled by the door. Now, nothing in this room is a catastrophe. The house isn't on fire.
But absolutely nothing is complete.
Exactly. You couldn't possibly smell the rain coming through the window or hear a very quiet, gentle knock at the door in an environment like that because the visual and mental noise is drowning everything out.
And those incomplete gestalts are actively hijacking your attention. They create a phenomenon called foreground pressure.
Foreground pressure.
It's this low-grade, relentless urgency hovering just below your conscious awareness. It demands resolution.
But it never quite rises to full clarity because turning around and facing the messy room is too painful or just too inconvenient.
Right, so instead of completing the tasks, your brain represses them and they turn into this phantom background static.
And those phantom figures manifest in bizarre, seemingly unrelated ways in our daily lives.
Oh, constantly.
Like when you realize you are having the exact same argument with 3 entirely different people in your life.
Where you feel completely, inexplicably drained after a normal social interaction.
Or you endlessly procrastinate on a creative project that you actually claim to love.
Those behaviors are almost never signs of laziness or bad time management. They are systemic signals of a field disturbance.
A field disturbance.
Something in your current present-day situation is rubbing up against an unmet need or a historical incomplete gestalt.
The brain is trying to close the old loop using the new situation.
Exactly. And until that underlying tension is brought into conscious awareness, it will continuously warp your perception of reality, like a funhouse mirror.
Wait, is this why the classic advice to just trust your gut fails so miserably for so many of us?
That is precisely why.
Because we aren't cut off from our intuition, we're just distracted by the ghosts of 100 conversations we never actually finished.
Yes.
If your gut is full of static, trusting it just means acting on your unresolved anxiety.
That is the exact trap. You are being steered by phantom figures, not insight. Which requires us to look at the actual mechanism of how we clear this cluttered mental room.
Because we can't just think our way out of it.
No, you can't logic your way into it. In Gestalt psychology, true insight is never an intellectual deduction. It is a spontaneous, holistic, perceptual reorganization.
So if we can't intellectualize our way to insight, how does it physically happen?
There's a fascinating example of this mechanism from agricultural research, actually. Have you ever heard of how poultry farm workers learn to sort baby chicks?
I can honestly say I have not.
It's notoriously difficult to determine the sex of a day-old chick just by looking at it. The visual cues are incredibly subtle.
I would imagine.
But professional chicken sexers can do it with near-perfect accuracy in a fraction of a second.
Wow.
The fascinating part is how they learn it. They don't memorize a checklist of biological features. An apprentice stands next to a master, makes a guess, and the master just says yes or no.
Just yes or no, no explanation.
No explanation. Over thousands of repetitions, the apprentice's perceptual field simply reorganizes itself. One day, they don't have to deduce the answer, they just know.
That is wild.
The entire pattern jumps into the foreground. It's pure embodied learning.
That is incredible. The knowledge bypasses the conscious analytical brain entirely.
And your inner voice operates through that exact same biological mechanism. It arrives through presence,
Through just being there with it.
through staying with physiological discomfort long enough for your internal field to spontaneously reorganize.
Without running away.
When you stop running from that tight feeling in your chest and you just lean into it without immediately trying to fix it or analyze it, it stops being static. It becomes usable data. It takes form.
Wow.
This is driven by a core principle called isomorphism.
Okay, let's unpack the mechanics of isomorphism because it sounds abstract, but it's deeply practical.
Isomorphism is the structural correspondence between your internal psychological state and your external physical reality.
So mind and body.
Right. The mind and the body are not two separate entities communicating via a telephone line. They are the exact same continuous field viewed from different angles.
Oh, that's a huge shift in perspective.
When you suppress an emotional boundary, your jaw clenches. The physiological bracing is the psychological suppression. They share the same structure.
So when you have a recurring vivid dream about wandering through a house with locked doors, that isn't just a random firing of neurons.
Not at all.
That is your perceptual field, mapping your psychic tension into a visual format, gesturing towards something in your waking life that is sealed off.
Exactly. The brain is translating emotional static into a physical or visual language.
So the actionable mechanism here isn't to start a massive self-improvement project. The tool is just awareness without judgment.
Precisely.
And we don't mean mindfulness as a way to just take a deep breath and zone out. We mean mindfulness as rigorous precision.
It's noticing, my jaw is tightly clenched right now.
Not layering a judgment over it by saying, ugh, I need to stop being so stressed, I'm failing at relaxing.
Right, just observing the raw data, this tension is happening.
Just acknowledging it.
That simple, non-reactive observation is the mechanism that reduces the charge of those incomplete gestalts.
It lets the loop close.
It allows the loop to finally close, not by you taking massive, dramatic action to fix your life, but simply through the act of acknowledgement.
That's surprisingly powerful.
Saying, ah, there you are, to a hidden fear or an old resentment is very often enough to let it release its grip and finally settle into the background. And when those phantoms settle, cognitive space opens up.
The room clears.
Your room clears.
So next time you are facing a massive decision, instead of agonizing over pros and cons and asking, what is the logical thing I should do?
Which just adds more noise.
Right. You might try asking, what part of my body is trying to speak right now? Scan for physical tension. Look for recurring images in your mind.
And don't rush to interpret them.
Just let that tension be the main figure in the room for a few minutes. You might find that the answer you're looking for isn't a sentence or a grand epiphany, but a subtle shift in your posture or a massive involuntary exhale.
Because your true voice was just waiting for the surrounding field to become quiet enough to carry it.
It was always there.
But you know, this leads to a profoundly uncomfortable reality.
It does.
Because once you actually do the work, once the background is cleared and the static drops away, what does the inner voice actually say to you?
Well, this is the great paradox of the whole endeavor, isn't it? The moment you decide I am going on a dedicated journey to find my true inner voice, you turn it into a self-optimization project.
You make it a task.
You make it a metric of success. And by doing that, you shove it directly into the glaring foreground of your mind, which virtually guarantees that the true, subtle voice will go into hiding.
The inner voice requires the absolute absence of demand.
Absence of demand.
Finding your authenticity isn't an act of aggressive self-expression, it is an act of self-dissolution into the present moment.
It's a radical shift from doing to being.
Exactly. You eventually realize that your inner voice isn't a tiny separate entity sitting inside your skull, it is you, in direct, unmediated relationship with the world around you.
Think about what it feels like to stand at the edge of the ocean or on a mountain at dawn.
Oh, that feeling of awe.
You sometimes feel this sudden, expansive, wordless clarity. It's not because your brain just mathematically solved a complex problem. It's because the vastness of the environment is perfectly mirroring an openness in your chest. That isn't a voice speaking to you from the outside. That is you speaking through the world.
The boundary between your ego and the environment temporarily blurs.
It's beautiful.
That is the ultimate limit of Gestalt insight. True authenticity is integration. The ego temporarily stops pretending it is a separate, isolated machine.
But people avoid this, don't they?
Oh, absolutely. Here's why people avoid this state so aggressively. This voice offers absolutely no safety guarantees.
None.
It functions as a witness to the present reality, not a strategic roadmap to a better future. It almost never tells you what step to take next.
So what does it do?
It only tells you what is undeniably true right now. It says, I'm exhausted, or I'm afraid, or I don't love this person anymore.
This is terrifying, actually.
It is.
The mundanity of that is terrifying. True clarity isn't a warm hug. It brings an immense, heavy responsibility.
A massive responsibility.
Because hearing that truth might demand that you walk away from a life you've spent 10 years painstakingly building.
Yes.
Or, equally terrifying, it might demand that you stay in the exact mundane place you've been trying so desperately to escape. Because it simply says, this isn't yours to fix, this is just yours to bear.
It tells you the hard truth.
And the brutal part is, once you hear that kind of clarity, even just once, you can never unhear it. You can't pretend you didn't notice.
And bearing that unease is the actual price of integrity. We mistake wholeness for harmony.
That's a great distinction.
Wholeness isn't feeling peaceful all the time. It's the stark alignment of figure and ground, of internal feeling and external action.
When you learn to live from that integrated place, decisions don't feel like agonizing choices anymore.
They emerge as natural, inevitable completions of the field, the same way a river naturally finds its course down a mountain.
So if we pull all the way back and look at the bigger picture we've painted today, the path to the inner voice isn't a journey inward, deep into your own navel.
No, it's not.
It's actually a journey outward. It is moving into raw, unfiltered, courageous contact with life as it actually is.
It's the vulnerability of sitting quietly with your physical pain or your boredom instead of immediately reaching for your phone to numb it.
The clarity you are looking for isn't hidden in a self-help book. It's found in the tiny, silent space between your inhale and the world that meets it.
You don't find it by hunting it down. You simply create the hospitable conditions for it to emerge.
You make room for it.
You allow every single part of your messy, unresolved experience to finally have its rightful place in the room so the truth can naturally stand out from the background.
I want to leave you with a lingering and frankly haunting reflection drawn from the materials we've been exploring today.
It's a powerful thought.
It's the very real possibility that you don't need to learn how to hear your inner voice because you have already heard it.
You've definitely heard it.
Maybe you heard it just this morning. Maybe you woke up a few minutes before your alarm and you lay there watching the dust drift in the morning light for 3 seconds, feeling a profound sense of peace before you remembered all the things you were supposed to be stressed about.
Or maybe in a social moment.
Yeah, maybe you heard it in the brief, awkward pause before you laughed at a joke from a coworker that you didn't actually find funny.
The voice was there.
It was there, but you dismissed it because it wasn't loud enough, or more likely, because it completely contradicted the convenient, safe narrative you've constructed about who you are and what you want.
The field is always ready, the figure is always trying to form.
But it won't force its way in.
But it will never shout over the noise, it just waits in the silences you've been meticulously avoiding.
So as you unplug and move through the rest of your day, perhaps the question isn't how to finally hear your inner voice.
No.
The question is, what are you willing to stop hearing so you can finally let it speak?